The Big 12 Board of Directors, made up of university presidents and chancellors, agreed to move forward with fall sports. Welcome in, everyone. I'm your host, Morgan Uber. The decision by the board was made late Tuesday evening and announced Wednesday at 10:30. However, fall sports won't begin before September 1st. For more on this, I'd now like to welcome in Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby. Bob, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know you have a very busy schedule, but Bob, what was the process that led to the decision to move forward to play fall sports?
Well, I think we've been on this process for the last 5 months. We've been seeking as much information as we can. We've been talking to the best experts and doctors and scientists. And so it's been a gradual process. And we always wanted to get to mid-August and see what preseason camp looked like and see what return to campus for the general student population looked like. And so we're now at that port more or less. And I think the board was anxious to hear from medical professionals, which we did last evening. We talked to a number of cardiologists and pulmonologists and neurologists and people that have been working and researching in the area of COVID-19. And so all along, it has not been my decisions. It's not been solely the board's decision. It's been we've been relying upon healthcare professionals, people that are working in the space all the time, and ultimately the safety and security, the good health and well-being of our student athletes and our staff members on campus is our number one priority. And so I feel very good that we've been able to maintain that sort of discipline. I think we have found good ways to mitigate the virus. We have learned what we don't know and learned ways to coexist with the virus. So it's been a long process. Parts of it have been rugged. I have to admit to days where I thought we could go forward and days where I was skeptical that we could. But in the end, I think our board made a strong statement. I think we have great doctors and scientists on our campuses, and I am very optimistic about moving forward. Having said that, however, if we get to a point where we have a crossroads and the information contraindicates going forward, we know that we can pivot quickly to protect student athletes and to do something different if what we're doing is not working. Well, I think one of the critical elements of it is enhanced testing. We started out with a national mandate that was once a week testing during our game weeks, and it was going to be 72 hours before the game. We now believe that more frequent testing, even if it is somewhat less reliable as a singular test, is a good way to build redundancy into the system and to make sure that we're not missing positive tests and thereby spreading the infection in ways that is undesirable. And so I think the 3 times a week testing will serve us very well, and that will be in football and all of our other high contact sports, including volleyball and soccer. And so the other thing is we have talked to experts on cardiac care after viruses and during viruses, and the indication from them is that there are reasons for concern, and that if we have positive tests, we need to make sure that prior to the time student athletes return to high activity, they receive cardiac MRIs and echocardiograms and EKGs and troponin testing and the like, and all of that is best practice for the situation post-COVID relative to heart inflammation. And so we're getting great advice. I think all of us are learning day by day. I think we are anticipating that we will see new developments in the area of testing, and not only in testing methodology, but in testing turnaround. And so there are some positive signs. It's just a very long process. It's one that requires a lot of patience. And we had a call with our student athletes a couple of nights ago, and there were 23 of them on the phone, and they all wanted to play, but they all wanted to answer questions about are we safe? what is it going to do to my eligibility, and what's going to happen to my financial aid. And I think we will be able to answer all of those questions very soon. And but first and foremost among them is the safety question.
You mentioned that group of student athletes that you've heard from, the Football Student Athlete Advisory Group. What have you and other conference leaders learned by listening to their perspective?
Well, I think they are the heart of what we do. And, as much as they're 18 to 22-year olds and they come in as adolescents, more or less, and leave as adults, they really are bright and articulate and thoughtful and caring. And so we want to hear what they have to say. We want to know how they feel and how what they know, and probably like all of us, what they don't know. And there's still a lot we don't know about this virus. There's some sign that it's evolving, and there's some signs that are somewhat positive, and there are some signs that are troubling, and we have to take all of those things into account. But I think in the end, it's difficult to accept shutting down our universities, shutting down our society, changing the way that we conduct our lives. And that's not to suggest that we should take unreasonable risks. We should certainly all assess the risks, and some of us, like older people like me, are higher risk than young people are. And so we're dealing with a population that's generally healthy, and yet when they get sick, we have to make sure that we can respond quickly and that we have the best advice as to how that should happen. And so I feel good about where we are. I really have great confidence in American scientific know-how, and most of our campuses have medical schools and have hospitals. And so we have some very high levels of expertise, but it's all about the students, and it's about particularly the student athletes in our environment. And we have to be able to answer those questions for them: eligibility, financial aid, and health and well-being. Well, some of those things are going to have to be done in real time. It's hard to plan forward for them. It was difficult to put our football schedule together, but one of the things we did is we tried to build in multiple bye weekends so that if we have a disruption that prevents us from playing a game, we have a reasonable chance of doing the isolation and the quarantining and all of that stuff, and then rescheduling the game sometime down later in the season. So, it's hard to know what we will encounter, but I think there will be fits and starts. I think there will be bumps in the road or potholes or whatever you want to call them. Everybody that we talk to tells us the same thing. You're not going to get through a year where you don't have anybody test positive. You can't find yourself in a space where there is literally zero risk. But mitigation of risk, application of best practices, using social distancing, wearing masks in meetings, and whenever you're not actually on the field or in the game, those kinds of things all have been proven to make a difference. And some of the success of the season, quite frankly, will have to do with how disciplined our student athletes are, because when they're in the sports environment, when they're in a training room, a locker room, a weight room, they're in a controlled environment, and we can do a pretty good job of disinfecting and sanitizing and using social distancing. It's when you're away from the complex and when you're in your apartment or you're off to a party or you're doing something around other people that may be a risky behavior. Some of the teams that have the best years and are able to get through the season will be those that are most disciplined in terms of how they manage their personal lives and their classroom lives and their social lives. Well, I think the good thing about that is we are likely to see positive innovations going forward. There are indications that some of the antigen testing is coming along rapidly. There are indications that some of the saliva tests and rapid response tests are becoming more and more reliable, more available, more affordable. And so I think all of that is good news. I don't think any of us know what will happen when we get into November, December, January, the traditional flu and virus season. So we could find the outbreak nationwide or in localities to be worse than it is today. We've always known we're going to have to learn to coexist with the virus. That's what everyone tells us. It's going to be around and very prevalent for 18 to 24 months until we get a fully efficient vaccine. And that's another point of good news. There are a number of different vaccine projects that are progressing. In fact, we heard about one last night that is headquartered at the University of Kansas. So, the Operation Warp Speed is right in the middle of the Big 12. And so we feel like there is likely some positive news coming forward, but we also have to be prepared for taking steps back as well. And so when you talk about how do you respond to those things, we've done a lot of scenario planning. We've looked at a lot of potentialities. We know that there are some possibilities that we could end up having to cancel games because there just isn't the right set of circumstances to go forward. But we athletic professionals and educators, for the most part, are not making these decisions. We are listening to doctors. We are listening to scientists. We're studying the literature very carefully, and we're proceeding conservatively. There is always some measure of risk, but the measure of risk, according to our advisors, is well mitigated and substantially in a position that it's not anything other than responsible to go ahead and try and move forward. Great to be with you, Morgan. Thank you very much.